You have to follow those letters up with phone calls, and you have to get your friends to write letters and your friends to call. And believe me, ladies and gentlemen, if we start now, and if you, each one of you, can influence just 5 friends to do the same, and they can influence 5 friends to do the same, we can have those crooks on the carpet in front of Congress by the end of November. We can do that. You can do that. Now, this is not the time to be afraid that if you do it, you're going to get on somebody's list. You're already on their list. And you're not worth a barnyard chicken to them. You're already on their list. They don't care about you. They don't care about any of us. They will tolerate us as long as we are useful, and that is as far as they will tolerate us. When this one world economic organization comes into power, your Bill of Rights is going to be flushed right down the toilet. And if there's anybody in here who's working for the government and came to find out what I'm going to say today, I want to tell you that those are your rights also, and you're on the wrong side. And they will do to you just exactly what they did to Ollie North, and Haldeman, and Colson, and Dean, and anybody else who was loyal to them but became expendable to save themselves, because that's all they care about is themselves. Don't misplace your loyalty. Your loyalty belongs with the Constitution of the United States and nowhere else. It does not belong with me. I'm just marching into battle with you. Maybe right now I'm a little out in front, but believe me, when you start reading on your own and researching and looking into this, you'll run up here with me. I know you will. I have great faith in you. Americans have always been there when it counted. And if I didn't believe that in the bottom of my heart, I would not be up here doing this, because this is suicide without you. But I know you're going to be there. There's a lot of things you can do. You can research, you can write books, as Mr. DeMar has done. You can help in many ways. One of the ways that you can help is start teaching our children what the Constitution is, because they don't even know. And you know something? I'm not going to do it because I don't want to embarrass you, but you don't know either. Most of you in this room can't even tell me hardly anything about what the Constitution says, and you know it. That is the United States. It is our freedom. It is everything that we stand for. It is the only thing on earth worth protecting besides our family and our loved ones. There is nothing else to fight for. There is nothing else that has ever given anybody the freedoms and the chance and the opportunities that our Constitution gives us. And we must never lose sight of that. The Constitution has been taken out of the school books intentionally, ladies and gentlemen. The Rockefeller family owns most of the teaching colleges. Did you know that? They also own most of the textbook publishing companies. Did you know that? Did you know that the Federal Reserve is not an agency or a branch of the United States government, and our money is nothing but worthless printed paper? Did you know that when you pay your income taxes, you pay them to the IRS, which also is not an agency or a branch of the United States government? It is an agency of the Federal Reserve. It is the collection bureau to repay our national debt to those whom we borrowed it from. When you get your refund check, it does not come from the money you paid in. The money you paid in to income tax goes to the Federal Reserve to pay off the national debt. The United States government, to give you your refunds, has to borrow again from the Federal Reserve to give you your refunds, and we go more into debt. And did you know that if we started printing $100 bills right now with all the money printing presses that we have at our disposal and printed money 24 hours a day, every day, forever. We could never pay off the national debt because we cannot print the money fast enough to even catch up with the interest on the unprinted amount. Our children and our grandchildren and their grandchildren and their grandchildren and their grandchildren and their grandchildren have been bought and paid for and are in debt forever. And our nation is owned by the European banking interest who own the majority of the stock in the Federal Reserve. We have been asleep at the wheel, and we are teetering now on the brink of a cliff. And one wrong move, we will go over that brink. But if we very carefully get out of this car and pull it back away from the edge of the cliff and get it back on a straight course to our destination, the true destination that we should be headed for, which is peace and posterity and safety and security and love and happiness, then we can survive. But as I said before, I cannot do it for you. I will march as far as I can until they strike me down. You've got to catch up with me. You've got to be with me, all of you, every one of you. If you go home and sit and think the rest of it will do it for you, then there may be somebody else sitting, thinking the same thing, and somebody else, and somebody else. And we might end up with everybody thinking that somebody else is going to do it for them. It's too late. It's too late. The Constitution of the United States and our freedom have never, ever been in greater danger than they are right now. We have never been at war with Russia. Russia is not our enemy. Russia has been our ally since the end of World War II, and I'm going to prove it to you right now. I'm going to show you a video that appeared on 60 Minutes last Sunday. And what did it say? How many of you have been reading in the papers that many of our generals and admirals and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff of both countries have been going back and forth? Do you know what they're doing? Have you been watching what else has been happening in the world? They're taking inventory of the combined arsenals and getting ready to merge the two largest armies, navies, and air forces in the world to make this world government. And the target date is 1992. The general says it to Mike Wallace right in the film that they have never considered the United States to be their enemy. And you might think it's propaganda. He was telling the truth. The reason for the guise of antagonism between the two countries for all these years has been to hide the fact and take the public's eye off of what was really going on. And the reason that they kept such large standing armies was, one, to fund large sums of money that they needed besides the dope money and everything else into these black projects, and to keep these large standing armies, navies, and air forces in case the Earth was invaded from outer space. It's all done in secrecy, still being done in secrecy. But over the last 10 years, they've been...
Next to Kubinka Air Force Base near Moscow, where the Americans got a close-up look at and a chance to ask questions about some of the aircraft they trained to fight against. Admiral Crow is still trying to get his Russian phrases straight.
How do you say thank you again?
Spasibo.
Damn, I can't remember. God, the size of that.
The highlight, a visit to the cockpit of a Soviet blackjack fighter bomber, similar to the U.S.'s B-1. We listened over a wireless microphone the Soviets knew the Admiral was wearing as he and Air Force General Monroe Hatch asked questions.
And, what's the top speed?
Какая максимальная скорость полета?
2M.
2M.
2 Mach?
2M.
And do you practice refueling with this?
Заправку в воздухе практикуете на этом самолете?
Нет.
No.
No. What do you think, Monroe?
It's impressive. How many cruise missiles does it carry?
12 крылатых ракет. 12 welcome.
12.
But lately, the Soviets claim to have undergone a major change in their military strategy, from emphasizing offense to defense. And They asked how could their blackjack bomber be an offensive threat with a range of only 2,200 kilometers, barely over 1,300 miles.
Against what kind of targets, then, are we going to use this plane? Within the range of 2,200 kilometers.
So I have a map.
Then General Moseyev made a remarkable statement.
We have never regarded the United States as the enemy of the Soviet Union. And we do not regard any possible scenario which would involve unleashing a conventional warfare or nuclear warfare, the most so against the United States.
You and I are literally members of a transitional generation, tasked at this moment to re-examine the way our two societies have thought.
Telling you the truth. How many of you saw the end of the Olympic Games in Los Angeles? Anybody? Anybody see it on TV or videotape or on the news? This incredible event, the most beautiful, authentic-looking UFO you ever saw, came down out of the sky and landed right in the middle of the stadium. It was awe-inspiring. It was beautiful. The crowd went wild. It was shining down the blue beams of light exactly as the abductees described them. It was an exact copy of the real thing. It was sponsored by Levi Strauss. How many of you saw the Levi Strauss Docker Slacks commercial recently? Where the guy runs in and says, "Hey, guess what, gang?" He's got on Docker Slacks. "America is hosting EBs." And the guy says, "EBs? What's EBs?" "EBs are extraterrestrial biological entities, and America is hosting EBs." And everybody says, "EBs, jeebies." He told us the truth, but we laugh at it. Not too long ago, Gumby on Saturday morning, your kid was sitting there and you thought he was watching good television. Gumby was abducted, implanted, and returned. And the little boy said, "I wish they'd do that to me." What do you think they're preparing those kids for? What else have you been seeing on TV? Alien Nation, who, by the way, look exactly like the group of aliens designated the Orange. How about War of the Worlds, which plays out the reality of John Lear's Lear hypothesis? What do you think is happening with ET, with V, which is telling us that maybe we may have to resist in just this manner if it ever turns out that one of these guys are bad guys? And what happens in V? The bad guys back a one-world government that takes over the world. And the world thinks it's wonderful, don't they? Until one lone CIA agent discovers the truth. And then people form little resistance groups. Well, gang, let's form them before it happens. Let's don't wait till it happens. Let's do it now. Let's prevent it. Okay? Thank you. There is a lot of supporting evidence that's out there. There are a lot of books. I suggest you read Whitley Strieber's book, Communion. I suggest you read his book, Transformation. I suggest you read his recent novel, Majesty. And I suggest you understand that the incident in there that he is describing is true, but understand that the formations in the government and the code words he's using are a part of a contingency plan called Majestic, and that he got the information from the research team of Moore, Chandray, and Friedman. Moore has stood up in front of the MUFON Symposium in Las Vegas on July the 1st, 1989, and admitted that he was working for the United States government, that he had been recruited, that he was putting out disinformation to researchers to keep them from finding out the truth, that he participated in the TV show UFO Cover-Up Live, and at least 50% of it was disinformation. About 50% of it was true. Etc., etc., etc. Anything you see that says Majestic is disinformation, and it is a lie. The true name is Majority.